Hi everyone, welcome to my channel. Sorry for the wait for the past month. Life has been really hectic recently at the hospital. Healthcare has gotten just incredibly busy since the pandemic numbers are down. In any case, to make up for this time, this is a double episode and it'll be a 2-for-1. I'll be making both the waistcoat and the underskirt all in this video. Editing Steed here. You know what? I'm just gonna finish this dress. So we're also going to be making the overskirt in this video. So for those of you who are new to this channel or to this project in particular, I've been working on a Victorian lady doctor. I've been working on a Victorian lady doctor outfit for the past year or so, and last month I showed off the jacket that I had made for the project. The idea is that I'm making an outfit that is not a direct cosplay of, but inspired by a lot of outfits worn by early women doctors in the Victorian era. A huge part of it was inspired by Elizabeth Garrett Anderson, a woman who managed to become the first female doctor in England in 1865. It is important to note that she actually did so after being rejected by every medical school she applied to in the UK. And she actually became a doctor by going through a side door through the Worshipful Society of Apothecaries, who by their charter could not refuse a woman a degree due to her sex. She even had the highest marks in her exam in her graduating group. But don't give them too many points. The Worshipful Society of Apothecaries aren't actually all that feminist. They amended the charter to prevent other women from becoming doctors after Dr. Anderson, and thus this route stayed closed till 1876. But let's talk about her outfit. Despite what people say about bustles and corsets and how constricting they were, honestly, they were a fundamental part of society, and without it, women had a hard time being taken seriously. It's like when you go to a medical school interview, no matter how radical you may be, you still have to wear the uniform of either a black, dark gray, or navy suit. So when we look at a photographer of these early doctors and nurses, all of them, as respectful members of society, are in fact wearing corsets and what looks to be fashionable clothing from that era. What I love about Dr. Anderson's outfit is that it looks to be a very feminine and fashionable bustle dress version of the man's classic three-piece suit. This is what I drew for myself. Last time I made the jacket. Today I plan on starting by making the waistcoat and then do the underskirt. Before I get to that, I want to take a moment to thank today's sponsor. So to do this, let's go to Sponsorship Steam. Hi guys, Sponsorship Steam here. I want to take this moment to thank today's sponsor, Skillshare. If you've watched anything by me before, you know that I'm personally really into learning new things, and I consider myself a lifelong student and collector of new hobbies. Skillshare is an online learning platform that makes doing this so much easier. Skillshare has thousands of online classes that you can take in a myriad of different topics, as varied from filming to cooking to time management to even sewing. In fact, Skillshare is how I learned to use Adobe Premiere so I can make videos like the one you're watching now, as well as how to film. Right now, I'm taking a class on calligraphy called Fractal Calligraphy with a 3.8mm parallel pen by Mary Jane Roussel. You may remember a few videos back I shared how much I love to use journaling with fountain pens. This class specifically teaches to use one of my favorite pens, the 3.8mm parallel pen. Her class is really awesome and even comes with printable sheets so I can follow along. Skillshare has thousands of classes like this, with new ones coming out every week, and all the classes have subtitles in Spanish, German, French, and Portuguese. Moreover, all these classes are just a few minutes long, so I can learn just a little bit every day and make slow and steady progress. They make it so easy to learn new things and try new hobbies, and right now it's easier than ever to join. The first 1,000 people to use a link in my descriptions or my code will get a 1-month free trial of Skillshare, so you too can explore your creativity. Thank you again to Skillshare for sponsoring this video, and now back to sewing. Thank you, Sponsorship Steam. Now for the waistcoat. I really wanted a single-breasted, i.e. one row of buttons waistcoat with a V-neck and no collar rather than the silky heap on her. I always just love this style, and that's what I wanted for myself. So to start, I used this pattern by Ageless Patterns to whip up the waistcoat. The waistcoat in the pattern had a full collar all the way up to the neck, but I figured that's easy to fix later on. For now, I'm mostly focused on getting the cut of the waistcoat right, as well as the fit. So I started with the muslin and made a quick draft by cutting it out and sewing it together. Fit it, I put it on inside out, and then I pinched and pinned all the seams to fit my dress form just right. You can also do it on your own corseted form with a friend if you don't have a dress form. I then took it off and copied all the markings onto paper. Once I had the paper pattern, I then cut it out in muslin as well as a dark gray / black wool from Barrington Fabrics, which is an old British company. Using the age-old Victorian technique of flatlining, I combined both together, wrong side to wrong side, and then sewed it 1/4 inch from all the edges. For the darts, I sewed about 2 millimeters inside of the dart line so the fabric would stay together and move as one. Once the dart seams were in, I then started sewing the pieces together. Afterwards, this was all basically stitched out and I put it on the dress form and made sure it fit. I took time to change up the neckline and put in the V-neck I wanted. I simply drew it in. I cut it out with a seam allowance of 1/2 inch.
I also used Pellon iron-on interfacing to the front of the waistcoat to add some stabilization.
I then ironed all these 1/2 inch seam allowances all the way around and then started stitching them flat to the flat lining with some hand stitched whip stitches that went only through the flat lining muslin and not the outside. This is how I also finished the jacket. Now, some people were bothered by the unfinished lining in my jacket and asked me to line it. The fact is, this unfinished lining is completely historically accurate to the 1880s. You can see it in basically all of Worth's gowns, and if Worth did it, I can too. So I could potentially line it with something else, like a polyester satin like we do today, but that's more a modern thing. Now at this point, I did try this on and realized that between me fitting the muslin last year and now, I had gained some weight. I could diet and exercise, but rather than that, I decided to be kind to myself and just do the 18th century thing. I cut out the stitches in the back, put some boning on each side in the gap, and then put some metal grommets on each of the edges. So then I could lace it up. This meant that I could easily add the 3/4 of an inch for comfort without making myself feel too bad about it. So being kind to myself is both historically accurate and will ensure a perfect fit for this waistcoat at all times, regardless of whether or not I go up or down a few pounds. I then stitched in the buttonholes as well as the caduceus buttons on my waistcoat. The buttonholes were done with my Baby Lock Soprano. Now here is a fun fact about a caduceus. It is actually not the medical symbol. The caduceus, as most of us know it, the wings of the staff and the two snakes, that's actually Hermes' staff and is associated with magic and alchemy. This staff is so closely associated with the god Hermes that Hermes actually has earrings with this staff on it. But again, not about healing. Moreover, it's been adopted by commerce, so now it symbolizes trade. The actual healing symbol is the staff with a single snake on it, and it belonged to the Greek god of healing,
Asclepius.
Now, where did the confusion arise? In the early 1900s, when the staff of Asclepius was being used as a symbol of healing, several organizations, namely the US Medical Corps, the Public Health Service, and the US Marine Hospital, started using the caduceus since they do look similar, but the caduceus does have wings and looks fancier. Now, I fear most of us equate the caduceus with the staff of Asclepius today. Certain places use the right one and certain places don't. In a survey done in 1990, it turns out that 62% of healthcare organizations, including the AMA, may I add,
Uses the staff of Asclepius correctly.
so that's awesome. But a lot of organizations don't use it properly, so just a heads up. Now, in my case, I definitely have buttons with caduceuses and not the staff. I know, and I'm fine with it. And it's just a fun side fact.
The staff of Asclepius,
With the snake on it, is thought to be associated with healing because the removing of parasites from one's leg, namely the long guinea worm, was an age-old thing done by doctors in the past. This had to be done with high dexterity, patience, and skill, since if the worm got broken in the middle, it could release toxins and perhaps even kill your patient. So there you have it. You may ask, why do I have buttons with this caduceus on it when it isn't even the right symbol and I am clearly fully aware of it? Well, they both symbolize healing now, regardless of whether or not we intended it that way. Moreover, the real reason is I couldn't find any buttons with the single snake on it, so this is what I got. So you know what? I'd rather have a button with two snakes, which is kind of wrong, but still kind of symbolizes healing now, rather than buttons without anything on it. So you're gonna see a lot of button sewing in this episode, so please get used to the caduceus. Now, once this was done, the waistcoat was almost finished, but I noticed that it kept on riding up. So I added 4 more pieces of boning, one to some of the darts in the front as well as one to the side. So this is 4 total. I did this by sewing in the channel and putting in synthetic whalebone into the middle. That fixed the problem right up. Now for the underskirt. Let's talk about how the 1880s skirt holds its shape up. If you've seen any of my videos where I walk through getting dressed in an 1880s outfit, you'll notice that there's a lot of structure involved. I have to first put on my chemise, my corset, and then I put on my bustle, which is tied on in the front, and then a petticoat to smooth out the lines of the bustle, and then an underskirt, and then the overskirt, which also looks like an apron. Don't worry, it's all comfortable and I can even sit in it. Let's get started on the underskirt. To do this, I set up my dress form with the bustle tied onto it. For the underskirt, Ageless Patterns did give me my own foundation skirt pattern, but I prefer to use my favorite, which is just a 4-gore underskirt by Truly Victorian, since it's already fitted to me. Basically the same pattern anyway. So I cut out the pieces in cotton twill and sewed it up. It's a very easy pattern to put together, and I put the closure at the side. Once that was all put together, I put it on my dress form. I hemmed the bottom up pretty short and then added in a waistband. wanted to have some visual interest and pleating. So I wanted to follow this look. I really love the straight pleats with the buttons. Interestingly, in Victorian times, these skirts didn't go all the way to the top to the waist, where the excess pleating and fabric would put all the bulk at the waist, making the waistline bigger. And this also wastes precious fabric when the top of the skirt would be covered by the apron like overskirt anyway. So what I did was I cut a 36-inch wide piece of wool, and basically I cut 3 of these selvage to selvage of my lovely dark gray wool. I then sewed it together and then chain stitched the top of the wool to prevent fraying. I first hemmed the bottom of the skirt by ironing it by 1/2 inch twice, and then hand stitched the hem so that it would be nice and neat. I then box pleated the skirt. I figured 7.5 inch wide was about right after playing with the design. I then pinned it down using like 1,000 pins. And then I basted all the pleats in. I used hand stitching to carefully stitch down all of this so they would be barely visible. I think I could have just done the buttons, but I honestly thought this would look better and neater. Please note that the bottom 8 inches of the skirt pleats were left free so they would add some movement to an otherwise very static looking skirt. For the very back of the skirt, I made some 3-inch wide pleats and then machine stitched the edge since this doesn't need to look like the buttons are holding it in place. Once all the back pleats were and the front pleats were in, I marked where I wanted the buttons to go. I then sewed 10 buttons to each pleat edge, 1.5 inches apart, or 20 to each box pleat. Times 5 pleats means 100 buttons used on the underskirt alone. So it's not possible to have the buttons lie completely flat next to the fabric. To get around this, I actually punched a hole in the fabric using a sewing awl and then pushed the button shank through. I then put a cord in the other side to hold it in place. After I put the design in the right direction so that I wouldn't have a bunch of upside down caduceuses, I then moved on to the next one. This kept all the buttons aligned and temporarily in place. Since this isn't exactly a permanent solution, I then sewed the entire piece of cotton tape down along with a few stitches in each buttonhole to anchor it down. How long did it take me to sew down 100 buttons? Something like 14 to 16 hours. I'm not 100% sure, but I know that it took at least that because I watched all of Bridgerton season 2 while working on this, and then at least 4 or 5 hours of another TV show. Once this was all done, I put on my bustle, some shoes, and had a friend help me by pinning the skirt in place onto the underskirt that I had already made so that the bottom of the skirt was approximately parallel about 1 inch from the ground. I then machine sewed the top of the skirt to the base skirt and the underskirt was done. Phew! It's really funny because that part was like 15 minutes versus everything else, which must have been like 30 or 40 hours. To make the overskirt, I decided to combine 2 of my favorite patterns. Initially, I was just going to use this pattern and for the front and the back, but once I actually made a mock-up of the back, that seems a little fussy for this dress. I'm imagining something with more buttons on it, so I decided to use this pattern by Ageless Patterns instead. So to do this, I first started by making a muslin in both the front and the back. The thing about these overskirts is you just kind of pin it onto your dress form and make it look pretty. You just kind of like pinch it and pull it and you drape it and you just pull at it until it looks good. Now the really funny thing is it's all about tension. You'll notice the way that I'm folding it, it's gonna be like things are gonna be sticking out here and there at the edges. And that's okay, those edges are going to be covered. After I pleated the way I wanted it, I knew that it was going to work, so now it was time to cut out the wool. I bought 10 meters, that's like 11 yards of this beautiful, gorgeous wool from Barrington's Fabrics, and I used basically every last scrap of it. So I cut out the overskirt as well as the back of the skirt using the paper pattern. Afterwards, I flatlined the front overskirt. So I use my muslin to just flatline it. It's thick enough and it works really well, and also it saves on materials. I sewed the darts in and I pleated that on my dress form until I liked it. Pinned that, took it to my machine and sewed the edges. Now again, these edges will be covered by the back overskirt. I got the back overskirt and I flatlined the front edges on the right and the left. They are going to be mirrored. I then used iron-on horsehair interfacing by Pellon to just sort of flatline just the front so it'd be really nice and crisp. I took the front edge that I had cut out an extra version of, put that wool side to wool side and seamed it. Turned that inside out and then put in the pleat. I did sew the edges down on the inside by hand. You can see a little bit of the stitching on the outside, but I don't think it's going to be all that visible once all the buttons are on. I needed 44 extra buttons for the overskirt. 144, 150, 156. Oh my God, that's a lot of buttons. 164 buttons. Yeah, that's a lot of buttons. I clearly have really like buttons. I went to my iron and hemmed the bottom edge. After I did that, I then pleated that on my dress form. I then took it to my machine again and then sewed the top down with a very quick stitch. Now this had to be attached to a waistband. And there we go. It was an overskirt. I could do a get ready with me, but I feel like this video is already running really over. And I really do want to like show all the details that I'm putting into the accessories because I am so proud of these accessories. So I'm going to do another video with the get ready with me as well as the accessories, including this amazing doctor's bag I bought. For now, let's stop here. I just want to say that I am madly in love with this outfit. It came out exactly how I wanted it to be, and I am really excited. I think that I'm going to wear this to my hospital for the next doctor's day. Not in the operating room, obviously, because even though that's where I work. So yeah. Thank you so much for watching. If you like this video, please remember to give it a thumbs up. If you are new to this channel and you like this video, please remember to subscribe. I put out videos usually twice a month detailing all sorts of adventures using really expensive fabrics. So I hope you join me next time.